Hello, good day to you. Today we are conducting the Community Connect program through Vishvavahini, and we have a very important guest today. We welcome Ranj Pereira, who was the Liberal candidate of Holt and Chief of Staff and Senior Advisor for Minister Jason Wood, and he has done a lot of community work. I have met him as the president of Sakkamuni Sampatha Vihara, and he brought in Mr. Jason Wood, and we got very good connection with the Minister Jason Wood, and not only the connection, through him we got a large grant for our temple, and we have built for long period we did not have a good building for the Dham Pasala, and thanks to the introduction of Mr. Jason Wood and the grants we got, now Sakkamuni Sampatha Vihara is a valuable place. We thank Ranj for bringing us to the Australian politicians. We never had any connection to the politicians, but Raj brought us in. He does a lot of community work, Raj. Now I know that you have lost your election.
Yes.
So what are you going to do in future? And what are you unhappy about losing it?
Thank you, Kosala. It's a pleasure to be here on your program, and of course your Community Connect program, and Vishvavahini does a wonderful service to our community in providing these sort of interesting and entertaining interviews. So it's when you asked me to join you on this program, I was delighted and happy to join because of the service you do, and thank you. And I know, of course, you have been throughout consistently doing wonderful community service to our Sri Lankan community here in Melbourne. Yes, lost the election. I must say this, Holt has been a Labor seat for 40 years. It's a seat that would have to be a miracle to win the seat of Holt. And I knew deep down that it would be very difficult and virtually impossible to win this seat, particularly in this climate that we had. It was a climate where the government had been in power for 9 years, a long time, and Scott Morrison as the Prime Minister he was a little bit unpopular. The polls were showing that. So in the midst of all that, I knew this would be a very difficult task to win the seat of Holt. Having said that, I gave it my best shot, and I wanted to make sure that when I represented the Liberal Party, and indeed I did not, I went out there with all confidence and made sure that we got out there and did our best. It was a hard election to win, and we knew we were not going to win this. However, what we did in Holt is, which hasn't been done before, is that we gained a margin towards us unlike ever before. At a time when the government had a massive swing against the government in every seat, 6 to 7, some seats 9% swing away from the government. In Holt, we've actually had a swing towards us, so which is something positive, and it's not. I'm pleased about that, and I'm happy. But of course, we go out there with the intention of winning. We couldn't achieve that, but I'm happy with what we did manage to do under the circumstances.
Ranj, I want to ask you a very controversial question.
Yes.
During your election campaign, there were some social media to say that you have brought in Yoshida Rajapaksha to Australia, and
Yes.
you brought him back to the airport.
Yes.
So it was going viral. Is it true? Can you tell me what it is about?
Yeah, sure. Firstly, before you ask that question, you must do one thing. As a media organisation, you can very easily write an email to Border Force. you can write an email to the Department of Immigration and ask, has this person arrived in Australia? And many media organisations did. And the answer was, this person has not arrived in Australia. This was one huge lie that was carried. It was a fraudulent scam that was carried out by certain members of the community. These members, there are certain members currently that I can't speak too much about it. They're undergoing, I did not take this lightly because one, it damaged my reputation no end. Okay, it was an absolute lie because I have never had any dealings or anything to do with the Rajapaksha family or any Sri Lankan political family. I left Sri Lanka at the age of 10. I went to school in England and Australia. My parents worked here. I have had no dealings with Sri Lankan politicians of any sort whatsoever. This was an absolute lie instigated through social media. Not just a lie, it was a scam. It was a fraud. And this fraud, the people that perpetrated this fraud needs to be brought to justice so that they don't do this to any other people ever again. Social media should not be used as a weapon to destroy innocent people. You can use social media for positive, good things. There's a lot of good things about Facebook, but it shouldn't be used to lie and denigrate and carry out scams of this nature. These people that perpetrated this fraud will be investigated, are being investigated, and also it is going through courts at the moment, and some of these people will be brought to justice and will have to pay for defamation carried out against someone innocent. Now, I really want to talk about this because I've got a family, I've got 4 kids, and there's people that are within this community, also within our own Sri Lankan community, that carried out this nasty, vicious, disgusting scam against me. Not only did they do that, they started harassing me, insulting my family under this nonsensical rumor when this person has not even been here. People, normal Sri Lankan people within our community, without checking the facts, without checking with the authorities, is this the case or not, started believing some rubbish that went on Facebook. This sort of scam can happen to anyone. All of you watching this program, this can happen to you. Tomorrow, let's just say you're a man, some guy can put on Facebook that you're having an affair with your next door neighbor and send it around on Facebook for everyone to see. Okay? And what would happen then? And all your neighbors, all your friends will start believing this and will start attacking you. That's the sort of scam that was instigated against me. It was an absolutely disgusting, despicable campaign against someone innocent who has no idea of who Yoshith is, who has no relation to the Rajapaksas, who, in fact, at the time that I was supposed to be at the airport, there's CCTV footage that I was actually in Cranbourne in the early voting centre. This was just nonsense. So anyway, sorry I got carried away there, because I feel very emotional about this because this was an absolute vicious campaign to destroy the reputation of someone innocent.
I'm sorry about that incident. Now, as a politician, can I talk about the economic situation and
Absolutely.
the future? You know that in Sri Lanka there's a huge economic problem and it is going to happen to many other countries according to my knowledge. Due to the Ukrainian and Russian war, there will be a shortage of food because Russia and Ukraine are the biggest exporters of wheat. Russia is the largest exporter of gas, coal and fuel.
Yes.
So I think not only in Sri Lanka, it may affect even Australia. I think
Yes.
at the moment there's a increase in inflation.
Yes.
And even in America, yesterday the president said that inflation has gone up to 8%, and
Yes.
he blamed Putin for the war. So we can't do anything about the war, and it is between
Yes.
Russia and America,
Yes.
the powerful countries.
Yes.
What is going to happen in Australia, according to you?
Absolutely. Now, a really good question, Kaursala. Now, let's look at it this way. Let's put this into perspective. We've been through a few years of the biggest pandemic that we've ever had. There has never been in our lifetimes a pandemic of this magnitude. The entire world. Plus, straight after that, we are now in a situation where Ukraine is involved in a massive war. So when you look at all the things that are going around in the world, it is not a surprise that this is happening, right? But one of the things that that Australia had, which many countries didn't have, is good economic management. Okay, if you go back and analyse Australian history, one of the things that the Morrison government and also the Australian government over the last 9 years has had their strength has been economic management. No government is perfect. We don't have a utopian world where everything's perfect. People make mistakes, but above all, we've had great economic management over the last 9 years. In those times, when you compare now, you arrived in Australia in I think 1990. My parents arrived in the 80s. There was a time when interest rates were 19-20%. Inflation rates were 12-15%. The unemployment rate was 12%. My dad had to spend more than 1 year when he first arrived in Australia to find a job. My mum had to catch 2 buses and walk 5 kilometres to get to her job. Those were difficult times. Now currently, we've gone through a period of, in spite of all the problems we've had, the pandemic and so on, good economic times, low interest rates, low inflation and so on. But because of obviously what's happened in Ukraine, you're correct, there's going to be inflation rates and so on that'll be going high. Interest rates are increasing. But what we don't have at the moment, this is not a criticism, the Australian Labor Party, one of their weaknesses consistently throughout history has been economic management. And they have been weak in economic management. And this is what worries me. And this is my biggest concern. You can't have a government that spends away, particularly when the economy is going through a bad time. If we go back to the 1970s under Gough Whitlam, the first Prime Minister in Australia where the Governor-General had to sack in 1978, the Prime Minister was sacked by the representative of the Queen, Governor-General, an unbelievable time in Australian history. The Prime Minister actually was sacked because of massive economic problems, the Labor Prime Minister, Gough Whitlam. Then again, we had issues back in the 80s and the 90s under Labor, with 10 years of Labor. Again, massive interest rates and so on. So consistently, without getting political, I guess to answer your question, we are going through tough times at the moment, and what I'm hoping for is hope for that this government is able to manage the economy better than they have in the past.
Ranj, in situations like this, charity is very important. I know that you have involved in various charities.
Yes.
And maybe you'll have to get involved in charities once again. Can you please tell me the charities that you have been doing?
Absolutely. One of the things that Kaursala, I've always been committed to and believed in is doing what we can to help those that are in need, help those that are underprivileged, help those people that are going through problems. So in terms of charities, I actually am involved with a charity called We Care Victoria, which is a charity which was formed during the pandemic to help those people that were going through very difficult situations with lack of food and so on. So we distributed care packs consisting of dry rations to thousands around Victoria, and also we did the same thing in Sri Lanka as well. So again, you're right. I think Sri Lanka is going through a very difficult time at the moment, a very bad economic situation, sadly, and it is time that we need to do something again. Yes, and we will. Also, I'm also a member of what's called the Lions Movement, Lions Clubs International, in a Lions Club called Lions Club of Casey Southeast United, through which again we do charity projects and projects to help our community. Yes.
Ranj, you are a very busy person. I am not going to take too much of time, if you don't mind. Ranj, we wish you all the best for your future. I hope you do not give up your political career. You know, politics is always up and down.
Yes.
Don't give it up, and please continue with your good work, your charity work. And thank you very much for coming for the interview during your busy time.
Thank you so much, Kosli. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the service that your program does. And I'm always happy to come on the program anytime. And of course, Vishvavahini, which is the station led by Bandhu Disanayak, a genuine person who has been doing amazing community service throughout, helping the Sri Lankan community and working within our community for a long time. And I've been honoured to be associated with Bandhu, and of course yourself as well. And I also want to say, before I leave, thank you for the amazing service you did as the president of the Berwick Sakyamuni Sambundha Vihara temple. It's a temple that I am very close at heart to, and I was able to bring Jason Wood and of course the Prime Minister there as well, and with a $780,000 grant. I'm proud to say that today one of the biggest Sinhalese language schools has been set up, and I should say this, Sinhalese is a language that is only spoken in Sri Lanka, so we need to make sure that our kids continue to speak that language, and that's so important, and that's why the Morrison government gave that grant. And it's great to see that young children in Berwick and in and around Melbourne are able to learn the Sinhalese language. And of course, I came to Australia at the age of when I was very young, and I still can speak Sinhalese, and I'm proud of my heritage and the amazing culture and the history that Sri Lanka and the Sinhalese heritage that I have received through my parents, and of course the country that we all love, Sri Lanka. Thank you very much.
All right.
Vishvavahini.